The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, solar-powered beer. We're going to talk about that. It's a wonderful thing. Renewables are number 2 in the USA. We're going to explain that. U.S. energy storage is going through the roof. I don't think that's news to energy professionals, but this figure that we're going to give you today is eye-popping. And lots of Tesla news. The VPP is coming for California, and stationary storage is sold out through 2023. We're also going to talk about the world's largest agrivoltaics project. Welcome to the show, commercial solar guy, and my co-host, John Weaver.
Hello, Timothy. I appreciate your patience with all these weird battery stories that I'm posting, but I want to hear from you because you mentioned it, but you didn't get into it. What's the dark side going on here? You're being
Well,
annoyed by something and somebody.
I've got
And
some really, really dark news for
okay,
our audience today. I sold my Tesla Model Y. I traded it in for a
wow.
for a 2014 Toyota 4Runner. And my logic is sound, so you bear with me. It's a lifestyle thing, but it's with a heavy heart, especially because there's a story in the news that we will talk about briefly, but we're going to maybe save that for a little later in the show because we want to get to all the storage news. There's a story that Toyota is lobbying against the EV transition because lo and behold, they've been slow to wake up to the EV revolution, and now they're kind of caught with their pants down, and they're actually trying to actually slow it down. I'm like, whoa, that is super dark. So I'm part of that darkness, and I apologize, and I feel bad, but the Forerunner is going to afford me to be able to travel with the travel trailer in a much more freestyle than I would be able to with my Model Y. And I considered it and I noodled on it and I've made the decision. So this is my bridge to the Cybertruck. I do have 2 Cybertruck reservations and I will be a proud Cybertruck owner. That will be in my next Tesla. But in the meantime, I've gone back to the Ice Age, John.
Hmm. Interesting. Lots of people do. I think 1/5 of EV buyers do end up moving back. Most of them, it's because of charging infrastructure, is what I've heard.
So here's the cool thing.
Mhm.
I put 16,400 miles on that Tesla.
Yep.
The dealer gave me $190 less than what I paid for that car brand new. Literally, they gave me 60 grand. I paid $60,190 for that car. It's amazing what you can get for resale. I could have made more probably from a consumer if I'd had the patience and didn't find that the Forerunner just kind of fell in my lap. And I've had my eye on Forerunners for years. I'm jonesing for a Forerunner. So, but that sweetened the pot for sure.
Interesting. If the dealer gave you 60, did they have the Forerunner trade in, or was that a separate dealer that had the Forerunner?
No, that was the deal. I traded it in for the Forerunner, and so it was a swap. I mean, I had obviously the Tesla's worth a lot more, um, but I had taken a loan on the Tesla, so I owed some money on the Tesla. But in the end of the at the end of the day, it was a wonderful transaction for me
Hmm.
financially. Um, and I'm just curious, like, what are they going to sell that car for? So I'll have to
But yeah,
follow up with
that's
them.
what I was saying. If they gave you 60, depending on how it worked, how the deal worked, it'd be real interesting to see what they do with it, how they sell it, how they flip it. Did you get the
Yep.
long distance version or the performance?
Yeah, I had the long range with the full self-driving package, which was only 7,500 at the time or 8,000 at the time. Now it's
8,000.
10,000. So,
Yep.
so that's the thing. It's these cars, they either maintain or maybe go up in value over time because of the nuances and the demand, right? The Model 3 is now sold out in the US and it is now the number 1 Tesla in sales volume also. We're not going to break down the Q2 sales results. The one statistic I'll give our listeners there, and you can just Google this, they did 10x in profit year over year what they did in 2020. So the accelerator is really kicking in now for Tesla, and it is going to be a rocket ship. Despite all the naysayers that continues to this day, it's just amazing. But
But you're not allowed to say that anymore. Not in the same manner.
That's true. I am still a Tesla investor, and and a proud former Tesla owner. So I can look forward to 2022. I hope it's 2022 to get a Cybertruck, but we'll see. I'll keep the Forerunner until that day comes. So solar powered beer. Let's get our priorities straight, John. Come on.
This is a straight up marketing device. Just want to let you all know. Adam Gent, he runs our residential company. We're both owners, and he wanted to put out a cool little piece of marketing for people to know about beer and breweries because it's something that gets in the news. And he did. The reason I liked it was one little stat. He goes, beer drinkers will pay more for clean energy generated beer. And he has like a number there, like 59% of people would. That's pretty cool to know because I remember back 10, 12, 13 years ago, I saw that 60, 70% of Floridians were willing to pay $10 a month to help the utility develop solar power projects, clean energy solar power projects. Well, solar is clean. And so that's good that we have that desire, that we're willing to pay more. I paid a premium for my car for a Tesla versus all prior. Yeah, that's a little stat that I like. I just thought that was a neat stat. And I paid a premium for my car. It cost more than all prior cars I've purchased combined. I've never bought a new car before. So it was important for me to put my money where my mouth is type of thing. And it's, it's part of my bills. It's not a cheap thing. It matters to me. It's cool that beer is there. And again, I wanted to, Adam did it to show off the website. It's got a boatload of clicks now and everybody types in solar powered beer and they find his website. So it's cool. But I don't know. It's just neat. It's neat that people care. And so that's the real reason I'm sharing it, is to remind you and solar professionals that the people we're talking to, a whole bunch of them actually, for many, many different reasons, care about solar power. So you got a good talking thing. It's not like you're selling a roof or selling a toilet bowl. It's something that people like, they're into. 90% approval rating in the US, or supported 88, 87, whatever it is. So now
I have two reactions to the solar beer story. One is yes. And I put on screen a local brewery called Riggs Beer Company that did an 80 kW. You see the ground mount here. And they also did a wonderful solar pergola in their back patio, which is super, super sweet. It's a custom designed pergola by Harvest Energy from Michigan. I unfortunately did not get even a swipe at bidding this project. It happened unbeknownst to me, but it's one of our favorite go-tos. It's just a mile from my house here in Urbana. My second reaction is yes. I have second and thirds. Consumers will definitely pay more for local beer, and I would pay even more for local solar beer. My all-time favorite local brewery, I worked very long and hard on a solar project with them, and at the end of the day, they shot it down. So I didn't get to solarize their brewery, and they will remain unnamed. But yeah, this is great marketing for our industry and for agrivoltaics, right? What is it? The Center for
that's like agrivoltaics, beer plus solar. That's
our friends in Minnesota that are big promoters of solar honey. Rob Davis.
Rob Davis. Yep.
And the Center for, I can't remember what it's called though, Center for Clean Energy or something, but he's actually no longer with that organization. He moved to a utility, but anyway, good work, Adam. And
I like it.
I hope he's getting lots of leads from his solar beer story.
That's the goal. That's the eventual goal. And Kyle Kramer, the website fixer.com, I think is what he is. He helped us design it and set it up, did a lot of the research. So two good people, two good workers.
Well, they have a nice little set of links at the bottom there too that I didn't see earlier. So check out that story. We'll put the link in the show notes. All right, we should probably move on.
Yes. I do like talking about beer though.
I like drinking beer, or talking about beer while drinking beer. How's that?
That's even better.
We'll have to
actually.
do that
Talking about solar while drinking a beer.
So I
So
want to talk.
I want to show the chart.
I'm going to switch it up on you here. I want to
Okay.
talk about the story, the EIA story about renewables became the second most prevalent U.S. electricity source in 2020. But stick around, because we're going to talk about Tesla VPP. That's the real story for today's show. I don't know if I made enough point of that in the opening, but the VPP is the bee's knees. And the EIA, as you and I have pointed out, they're a blessing and a curse, right? Because they're always under predicting the influence of renewables on the grid. But anyway, what's the story here, John?
It's just them showing off the 2020 numbers. And I, since they posted it and it got a lot of headlines and a lot of people like to see it from them, I thought to point it out. I mean, technically they released this information back in February when they did their 2020 numbers, but this just shows that last year we could see coal continuing its plummet, nuclear staying flattish, maybe a little bit of increase as they get more efficient. But renewables, which includes wind, solar, hydro, and a whole bunch of other items, continuing to grow. And you can see right there on that chart where there's a whole bunch of people coming together right at the end of the year. And what's interesting about the renewables number is that percentage growth is occurring while hydro went down last year. So, solar plus storage is growing even more, or solar plus wind is growing more aggressively than solar plus hydro plus everything else. In fact, like solar thermal is going backwards. It's got less biomass and geothermal. I don't know those numbers, but they're light. But I do know for a fact hydro is down last year and it's going to be down huge this year. But it's just nice to see the percentages getting to a point on charts where people, it's like, okay, you're serious. The growth is serious. Solar and wind are both setting records again this year. I think they're up 14% versus 17% versus last year. Solar being about 26, wind around 13. So they're both up. So 17%.
Isn't hydro about 8% of the grid?
It was 2 years ago. Last year, this year that we're looking at in 2020 was about 7. This year it's going to be about 6. It used to be 10.
Because of the drought, or because they're closing hydro dams?
Mostly because of drought. In California, in this year, they're literally shutting systems down because of drought.
Yeah.
When the California snowpack is lessened significantly, like it was 2-3 years ago, we see the springtime California numbers go up for gas significantly. And we're seeing it this year in a huge amount. Like I'm watching the numbers, and hydro is down, renewables, wind and solar are up, but and with the temperature up, gas and with electricity use up overall, it's like the numbers look funky this year. But we're comparing them versus last year. I was hoping that we would have seen 50% clean electricity in May, but we didn't. Normally our peak month is in May, and this year our peak clean energy month was actually in March, and it might get matched because March and November line up a bunch. So we might see March and November as a dual clean peak month, whereas May usually is. So this drought is not trivial. It's it's affecting our energy, and it's making it a little bit dirtier.
Climate change is definitely happening. I have a couple reactions to this. One is, yes, I love it to see the collapse of coal, and it's now 19% in this chart. Nuclear is stable at 20%. Renewables are 21%, including hydro. So wind and solar are approximately 14%, right? But combine renewables and nuclear, you've got 41% clean grid, basically low carbon grid, which is an awesome number. And then natural gas is climbing and is 40%. So that's the big dog in the room. And the one that battery storage is going to take out here in the next decade. New gas is really not economical, but there's a lot of gas on the grid, and we see that gas is not infallible with the whole debacle in Texas in February, where if those facilities are not hardened, it can be a problem. And then the hacking incident. So, in any case, this is basically really good news, and I'm psyched and glad that you brought this to our attention.
A lot of juice, a lot of clean juice. I like that the nuclear plus the renewables number is pretty healthy. We had 45% CO2 free electricity in March. I mean, that's just a cool number.
So in a related note, you found this really incredible chart, which I'll put on screen now, from Bloomberg, and it shows the growth of energy storage to 15 gigawatts estimated in 2020, huh?
Almost 15, yeah.
13.
Number. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the gigawatt hour number. I bet you 8 gigawatt hours at least will be installed in California. And by August 1st is what I think that number is supposed to be. So this means there's a lot of storage outside of California as well. But 8 gigs in California ain't bad. You're going to see me highlighting their peak number real soon, maybe even yesterday, because they had a heat flex request. I guess California dealt with it. But this and that gas is, significant. It's specifically going to be gas peakers that this battery storage first kills off.
Yep.
Then we'll slowly see the gas start to come down, and we'll see the windows that the solar and the storage start to take wider, combined with how the wind works, that little dance that we're going to start doing more. But that volume of energy storage being deployed, it's just cool. They talk about this nice smooth S curve. This is like clunk. This is a big chunk. I saw an article this week from a group who focuses on batteries, and they said that Rio Tinto, who's maybe the largest mining group, maybe the second largest, top three, they just put down like 2.6 billion to mine 70,000 tons of lithium ion phosphate or lithium carbonate per year. And I backwards worked it from the 2030 projections, which are 4.1 terawatt hours per year of manufacturing capacity. And that represents about 1.5% of the volume of lithium ion we're going to need by 2030. And it takes like 5 years for these plants to come on. So you might be hearing a whole bunch of lithium ion mining stories over the next 3 years where people say, okay, we're going to start building a new mine, and here's it going to be. And that chart, solar growing, looking at the gas number grow is both cool and it sucks because it's fossils. We don't want fossil generation, but it's relatively cleaner and it's much more flexible. And so that means we're going to be able to, we're going to be forced to interact with it more. And gas is going to do its best to fight and find its spot in the machine and hold on to some capacity. And batteries and solar, batteries are going to be just as active, 10 times more reactive than gas. But it's going to be a dance there with these big batteries, with all this mining, with the cars. We're going to see a lot of dancing between these various sources. And that's, that chart from EIA, that's going to be part of our future. Coal is going to go to zero.
Definitely. So in another related story, which I am embarrassed to say, John, I did not realize that you wrote this story this morning. Literally, I was working on the thumbnail for the show. This is episode 53, and it's going to publish on July 30th. I just Googled Tesla VPP. I had seen a couple stories about it in this last week, and I used the image in this story that you wrote for PV Magazine. So thank you. And this John Weaver guy, he's making waves. And so what is the VPP Tesla story? Why is this news?
It's cool for a couple reasons. The first, which is the main reason I wanted to talk it up, is that in California you can now join the Tesla managed residential energy storage VPP via the click of a button on your cell phone. That's the key. And that was the best part. You know, Sunrun has a VPP already. Sunrun's awesome. And Sonnen has a VPP called Sonnen Communities. And Sonnen is the smartest, oldest, you know, they're the bee's knees when it comes to home energy storage with intelligence. But the fact that you can now opt in to a VPP on your cell phone via pushing a button and join in the California power grid, it just kind of made me feel a little warm and fuzzy and weird. Like, really? I can push a button and now I'm on the power grid? I'm like, I'm there, I'm hanging out with the big boys, you know? And it was just cool. And you know, the whole VPP thing, the virtual power plant, the distributed network of intelligent machines coming together to overtake the grid versus, you know, right now we have 3 million solar power projects in the United States. So we have 3 million solar power plants. We used to have 5,000 power plants in the United States. 5,000 into 3 million. Is that like a third of a percent? Like, is that growth of 3,000, 2,000%, 10,000%? I don't know. It's a big number. The fact that your house can so easily opt into a power plant, I think the utilities better watch themselves. If you can push a button, make a little extra money. Now, specifically, there's no money yet. It's a public good. Elon Musk said, hey, as of yet, we're just figuring our junk out. Give us a moment. We do think there's a possibility of making money. You got to read the language they put on there. They said right now, but not in the future, but in the future, maybe you'll make some money. So do you want to experiment with your battery with Elon's thing? I probably would just because I'm a dork like that, but we'll see. But beyond that, above that, much more important than that, and you got a sweet interview coming up that you're going to share with everybody, that everybody really needs to pay attention to this company or this utility more than anybody. But the fact that so easily now we have the smarts to turn your house power plant into a power grid power plant. You got to say that deeper, like power grid power plant. That's what makes it cool. And that's, you know, you're pushing a dumb little button on your phone and you have, you know, integrated. Everybody's going to do it.
Yeah, you're referring to my upcoming interview with Josh Castonguay at Green Mountain Power. And Green Mountain Power has really made a splash for quite a few years. They were a very early adopter of residential storage, and they're doing virtual power plants. They're doing vehicle to grid experiments now, using school buses and other fleets of EVs, which makes so much sense because those fleet vehicles are often just sitting in a parking lot. And A, they can soak up solar energy while they're doing that. And B, when they're not being driven, then they can provide grid services. But this Tesla story is one that we've anticipated. But 50,000 Powerwalls, that's a lot of juice. 250 megawatts worth of juice. So it's a real, or 675 megawatt hours is the actual production. So, and that is the beauty of Tesla, right? Is that they make this so simple for consumers. Literally, you're just going into your Tesla app and hitting, yes, I want to be part of the VPP. But presumably they're going to compensate consumers for this, right?
I mean, not yet. I mean, they very specifically say, no, not yet.
Okay, so this is a trial run where there's no monetization for the consumer.
Correct.
But we were talking in the pre-show about another program that is going to allow for monetization. Is that in Massachusetts, maybe?
There's programs all over, actually. There's floating around out there. So in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, we have a program. We call it the Connected Solutions Program. And there's it's demand charge related. And you can get like 1,000 up to 1,250, maybe even 1,500. I think 1,500 is a bit strong. I think it's like 1,250, where you can earn up to that amount per year by allowing the utility to use your battery during peak demand events. In GPP territory, GMP, Green Mountain Power, they will allow people to spend like $10 a month to get a Powerwall or even two in their house, as long as they allow the Powerwall to be used during high demand events, and they guarantee it doesn't go below a certain percentage of electricity. There's programs that, if you go into that article that I wrote, there's actually 2 or 3 recently announced ones as well. Like they're just popping up now. There's a new VPP with Sonnen in Westchester County, New York. There's, they're just coming out. I think you're going to get real annoyed with me in about 6 months. I'm going to be like, VPP. And you're going to be like, heard it, John. Next story. We're moving on. That's very 2020 news. Because it's popping everywhere. And, Sunrun is the one who broke it first. Well, Sunrun is the one who broke it first with the utilities getting paid for it. They did it in the New England ISO region. They bid 20 megawatts that they were going to get cumulative residential solar plus storage, 20 megawatts worth. And supposedly that's starting this year or next year, or the year after, something like that. That's pretty cool. It's the grid. The grid is evolving, and we're watching it. So,
yeah, the expression we're going to start hearing a lot is the grid of the future. Yesterday it was centralized power plants, as you pointed out. There were some thousands of power plants around the country, and now there's going to be millions of them, or hundreds of millions of them eventually. And it is going to make a world that is so much more resilient, right, to outages. It's going to save people money. Okay. We're talking net savings by creating the grid of the future. We're not talking out of pocket. Yes, there is some upfront costs, but the evidence is very compelling that this is going to create net savings for consumers. So do not resist the VPP. That is a tragic mistake. Be an early adopter and get in the game with Sunrun or Tesla or Ohm Connect. There's so many of these services now. And pressure your utility. If your utility isn't allowing this for some reason, fight back and speak out, because this is good for consumers and it's good for safety and resiliency, which is more important.
They're with you.
All right. And this is like the storage show now. But
storage is big, dude. Storage is big.
Yep. Tesla, as I mentioned, did have their Q2 earnings call. And one of the take homes from that, besides the fact that their sales for EVs are just going through the roof, is that their storage business is doing really well as well. And it's turning a profit. And they're now sold out for stationary storage through 2023. So if you want to get a megapack, you better get in line. And one of the comments I saw on LinkedIn about this is that Tesla might, really shine a light on or focus their resources on the resi side of this industry, because there's just less red tape and they can get the installations going faster and basically make the energy transition happen faster, focusing on the resi side. It's going to be a both and. We need grid scale, we need utility, we need commercial scale storage. And it's not good for us as a commercial industrial solar installer that's doing megapack projects, but c'est la vie. They reported
I think they'll do both. They got enough smarts. They have the installation teams. They can do the assembly work. They have the expertise with the battery pack assembly. what I took from this article, the main reason I focused on it, because I didn't actually listen to the call, but in it, they reference that the car is much more important than the standalone battery. And the car will get battery cells prior to the battery pack. And right now, vehicles are a priority during the low supply period, and their power pack installation volume, they're probably gonna, they said they had like 80,000 units in their booked or something. They could only deliver like 40,000 by the end of the year or something. But they see a potential demand for 1 million units a year. That's huge. First off, 1 million units a year. Wow, that's 20,000 a week. But they're not going to let it happen until the car demand is satiated, or until they scale up their factory. And this is the same thing they said like 2 years ago, and they said Powerwall demand was low. So it's people want some batteries, especially with fires and all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah. And the weak link here is the chip shortage. They have to prioritize the chips going to the vehicles, and that's causing a shortage for the stationary storage.
Yep. So it's a big growing machine. And, we like Tesla because they're the US company. We drive Tesla cars. Some of us do. And we like to talk about them a lot. But, everybody's batteries are sold out. Everybody. And, we didn't put it on the list, but I should have. Did you hear about the new thing coming out from Form Energy? Their flow battery that they finally put some bigger announcements out on?
Oh, yeah, that's a great story.
Yep. It's flow battery. They're putting out a product that's very specific.
I don't know if it's a flow battery. It's an iron air battery.
Yeah, it's flow battery. They're all flow batteries. It's called an iron air battery because of the way the liquids work and everything, but it's a flow battery. And their first product is 1 megawatt capacity, 150 megawatt hours, and they believe they can deliver it at a cost of $20 per kilowatt hour, which would be huge. It'd be $3 million. So if you got $3 million, you can have a 150 hour battery at 1 megawatt. Apparently in a year and a half. That's pretty cool. And it takes up about an acre to deliver that 1.5 megawatts or 150 megawatt hours, which isn't bad. You could build an acre of solar panels underneath it, do shipping containers with a cheap roof, tying them all together, make it into a carport, and then, put it in your solar field.
Yeah. These guys at Form Energy are doing a 1 megawatt pilot in Minnesota. I think they have a 300 megawatt project in the works as well. I can't find that story right now, but
they have two versions of their battery. They have a 1 megawatt, 150 megawatt hour. Then they have a 3 megawatt, 300 megawatt hour version. So they might also have a 300 megawatt hour project. I don't know the project specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to circle back on Form Energy. I want to keep talking about Form. I'm very excited about that technology. It's not easy, John, because there is a lot of smoke and mirrors in the energy industry, and in the EV industry. You see the troubles of Nikola, and
Speaking of, you want to talk about that guy?
That guy's under investigation.
I think there's more than investigation at this point. He has been charged. Investigations have occurred.
Yeah. Yep. I called bullshit very early in the whole hype cycle that Nikola went through. I don't know, was that 6 months ago or maybe a year now? But that's just, it's too bad because it casts more doubt. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt is what Wall Street and the fossil industries like to create. Not all of Wall Street, but some of Wall Street. fueled by the fossil industries, around the EV transition and the electrification of everything. Because let's face it, they have a vested interest in burn, baby, burn. They want business as usual. And yes, some of them are getting behind green hydrogen now and batteries, Shell bought Sonnen, right? They're no dummies, right? They see the writing on the wall that energy storage is going to be a cash cow and that fossil fuels are not going to be a cash cow. They will be for a period of time still, but we are now going through this, decade or two long, rapid transition. And I want us to save the fossil fuels for a rainy day. We will need fossil fuels for various and sundry reasons. We should just be very careful with them, especially because they're causing runaway climate change. But
So Trevor, he literally took I don't know if it was a cardboard cutout of a semi trailer, towed it to the top of a hill, and then let it go and said, "This is our hydrogen truck running under its own power." Like straight up, that's what he did.
yeah,
You want to hear the best part? That when he got fired for being a crook, they gave him $3 billion of stock.
yeah, that was pretty sour apples.
That's
So he's been indicted on 3 counts of fraud. That's breaking news today, right? And um,
fast talking showman. Look at that. He's a fast talker, Timothy. Don't trust him.
yep, engaged in a fraudulent scheme to deceive retail investors for his own personal benefit, according to the federal indictment unsealed by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan on Thursday. Milton was charged with 2 counts of securities fraud and wire fraud by a federal grand jury. So we'll see. There will be a trial now, and we'll see how the chips fall. It doesn't look good for Mr. Milton.
Well,
There's I I used to study psychology and social work, John, and basically there are 10% of the population has some kind of a mental disorder. Um, and so even really smart, creative, successful people can have a mental disorder that pushes them to do things that are nefarious. And so there are lots of white collar criminals out there. There's criminals of all flavors, right, in society. But we need to hold the white collar criminals' feet to the fire just as much as anybody.
yeah, I don't want to. I think it's very unfair to associate mental issues with stealing billions of dollars. I think that's just straight up knowing that the structure will allow you to get away with it because you're very experienced and conscious of how to manipulate. That's
Well,
not necessarily a mental
it could
thing.
well be that
That's-
he's a psychopath, though, right? There is a test that has been created and to to quantify this. I don't know. I don't know, and I'm not saying you have to be a psychopath to be a criminal, but this guy is obviously very smart, and you don't invent Nikola without being a smart guy. It just he chose to go down a path that was clearly, to all of us bystanders, quite deceptive. You pointed that out. The advertisement that they created was deceptive. When you're moving something not under its own power by the power of gravity, but claiming that it's under its own power, that's deception. And that led to obviously the uncovering of other deception, and now there's going to be a trial. So,
Hey, listen,
all
for
right.
$3 billion, I will lie a lot, Timothy.
John, I'm shocked. All right, so we're I think we're down to our last story, but this is a doozy of a story. The largest agrivoltaics project in the world. Where is this happening?
So this is happening in the Balkans and Europe, and The project is actually really big, 660 megs. It's like $500 million. So 700 hectares. I think that's what, 640 acres per hectare. I always mix up my number there. No, that's 640 acres per mile. I think there's like 3 acres per hectare. But plus or minus. And the cool thing I noticed is that they're going to have 7 zones for various crops. There's also a neat picture of the project isn't built yet. So the picture that they show off isn't this agrivoltaic project. It's a different one. But it's really cool to see the experimentation going on with solar plus food. And when first off, though, you'd think, based on the volume of times that I talk about it, that it's happening everywhere. But really, it's still kind of a new thing where, this is just something that's warm and fuzzy to talk about in the press a lot because it's super early. But the fact that the project is this big, that's pretty cool. It'd be among the largest in Europe, second, third, fourth largest in Europe. I think in a different article, I saw the largest in Europe was 800 megawatts, 700 megawatts. So it's just a big power plant in Europe. And now it's going to be a big power plant integrated with a farm. And if there are 1,000 to 3,000 acre solar plus real farms in the world, that's going to change land use ideology really, really fast. If you can go to a farmer and say, listen, we want to take over 3,000 of your acres, which is a big chunk. We want to take those 3,000 acres and we want to turn it into a farm that will only output 70% of its former farm volume. But it's also going to output 70% of what a full solar power plant would be here. And research has suggested we can get, 80% out of each. We can chop off 20% of the solar, chop off 20% of the farming, squeeze them together, and we get 160% of the value from the land, sunlight plus food from below. If we can do 1,000 acre solar plus agriculture thing that makes real chunky food, not greens for my high priced lettuce in downtown whatever city, but like some turnips, some potatoes, that's what interests me. You know what, we should read the next story, but I'll bring it up next time. There's another person who's doing vertical farming indoors with potatoes and broccoli. So when we get these big chunky vegetables integrated into solar, now we're talking life sustaining power plants, power for the body, power for the home, runs life. That's cool. That can get us to the next, 10x growth. The next, we're at 1,000. We're almost at 1,000 gigawatts. We're almost at 1 terawatt. We're gonna need like 10 terawatts of solar. That's what I see sometimes. 20 terawatts to get us to the next 10, the next 20 of what we've done already. I want to see a square mile of food and solar. That would be sweet.
Yep, I'm with you. And we are going to see just a ton of agrivoltaics. It's so early days still in that industry, both for growing food and then solar grazing. With the American Solar Grazing Association, Lexi Hain, who was on the Solar Podcast. So really excited to see the Europeans stepping on this. This project is in Serbia. I'm not sure if that's former Yugoslavia. I visited Yugoslavia in 1986 and in the winter, and I went skiing at Sarajevo. It was a blast. I really had a good time there. Lovely people, lovely food, lovely culture. And then it was torn apart by a civil war, unfortunately. But so we better wrap it up here, John. How can our listeners reach you, Mr. Commercial Solar Guy?
I prefer yodeling. Yodia. I guess you could also call us. You could send us an email. You could Google Commercial Solar Guy and you'll find us in all the various social media platforms. But our website, Commercial Solar Guy, use contact us form. That's the quickest way.
I'll put that on screen now. commercialsolarguy.com/contact 508-999-SUN. Got to get the sun in there. You can reach me, Tim Montague, at cesnrg.com/podcast. That's where all of the Clean Power Hours reside, where we bring you every week the latest in the energy transition, wind, solar storage, agrivoltaics, and a little tech from space. We're always covering what's going on with SpaceX and Tesla, and it is a rocket ship. That's the beauty of the clean energy transition, John. It's a huge economic opportunity. And so if you're not in the energy industry yet, you want to get into it one way or another, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. So just type in Clean Power Hour Montague Weaver into your podcast player and you will find the Clean Power Hour. Subscribe to it. Please give it a thumbs up and a rating. We really appreciate that. That helps other listeners find this content, and that's why that is important. And then we love to hear from our listeners. Please send us your ideas. That's why we're covering the VPP, because our listeners want to hear about that. So with that, I will say, let's grow solar and storage. Have a great week, John.